Moon Knight, Episode 4, The Tomb. Howdy do, G-Pot crew, it's your naughty buddy Putty here, and today we are reviewing episode 4 of Moon Knight called The Tomb. Now, we are in two more episodes, I should say, after this one. I think it's 6 episodes altogether, so we have went beyond the halfway point when it comes to the series, and things have gotten pretty hectic from the last episode. So as usual, this will be a spoiler review, aka breakdown of the current episode. So if you have not watched it, definitely go and watch it. It's on Disney Plus. You should be watching it. That should be why you're here as well, just to get all the information, the Easter eggs, and full breakdown of the episode. So of course, the way this will work is that we'll do a full breakdown of each little Easter egg or hint or backstory that I want to give you about, or I know about Moon Knight, and then we will go into my final thoughts, which will include my final review of this episode and what I think of the series so far. With that being said, let's go ahead and go into our first breakdown of episode 4, The Tomb. Now, the first thing I want to go over is Asylum. As you see here, he is the avatar to Osiris. Now, here's the thing. In the comic books, they didn't really do much of the whole every Egyptian god had a avatar. In the comic books, they actually just had the Egyptian gods. So I'm not exactly sure if there's something I'm missing that I wasn't aware of when it comes to Moon Knight in the comic books. Though I will say, again, for me to read every single Marvel comic book would be very dissident, or what's the word? Not distant. I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but it'd be very hard to do, basically. I am a Marvel geek. I love reading Marvel comics, but a lot of times my connection to certain characters may be just because they bled from other franchises. So here's what I mean. This is Osiris in the comic books. Now, it's not the avatar of Osiris. It's literally Osiris himself. And for me, the story that I had or known about with Osiris was him, him working with Thor, and I think it was against Odin because he was resurrected as another god. I can't remember exactly. There was a whole lore that was just crazy back then. That it's all, whenever you have the asterisks in the corner saying, "Hey, go check this," comic book out, because they reference it. That's a lot of times when you have to say, okay, I'm gonna have to go and find this comic book so I can understand the backstory. Though you did just kind of explain the backstory. I'm pretty much that asterisk in that comic book that you see where it's like, okay, well, I don't know that information, so I'm gonna look it up online, and I become that asterisk of that information. But sometimes I am using that asterisk as information. So if Moon Knight itself is not just the only avatar, which is true that he's not the only avatar, but every single Egyptian god has an avatar, I'm not familiar with any point in the comic books of Osiris having his own avatar. But through this show, Selim is the avatar for Osiris. So just to give you that backstory and information. Whether or not this happened in the comic books, I'll be honest with you, I don't know. I don't think so, because all the information I have about Osiris always led into the Thor comic books. But I thought I'd just inform you. It's always good to be informative to me as well. So definitely comment below if you do have more information about that. But I think this was particularly made for the show to further add more lore to the whole idea of avatars so that every Egyptian god has an avatar. Now, the next thing I want to point out is the snake skin to what looks to be a snake arm, actually, here in the tomb that they went into, where for a moment you'll see that Steven gets preoccupied or distracted, and I think they did this on purpose as an Easter egg, but this could go deeper into, again, stories of the lore when it comes to the gods, things of that nature. So let me explain what I mean. So in the comics, there's a character named Seth, or Set, or Satha, which is the god that is a serpent that learns that if he devours any elder gods, he can gain their power. And the reason this kind of excites me is because we're going to start getting into more connections with, as I stated earlier, with Thor's storyline as well because of the gods. What makes this exciting is we just recently got the trailer for Thor Love and Thunder, and in it I talked about how there's a god or a character in there that I assume could be Hercules. But then what you don't know is Set, aka Satha, is connected to Conan, another character that would be within that mythos when it comes to elder gods, or they're not. Conan's not really an elder god; he's more of like um, a hero, or one of those mighty heroes of the past that has been in lore that is now open to anyone using. So when it comes to Thor, and then of course Moon Knight, these two characters that are central characters to their gods, whether it be Egyptian gods, whether it be Greek gods, whether it be I'm having a brain fart about the situation with Thor, but everyone has their gods. But they all, in the Marvel comics, end up coming together as gods of different religions, deities, um, races, things of that nature. So my whole point, the whole thing is I feel Moon Knight, and with the new Thor movie coming out, this is giving them the opportunity to start looking at those and bringing them together. That's why I think things like Set here is being set up, no pun intended, as a connection that they can possibly use later down the road in expanding the lore into mythologies that are more well known but have their own setup or grandeur, enlightened idea, I guess you could say, to a bigger story. That can be something that even if you're not a Marvel fan but you're a historical fan, could connect to in some way as well. And this is good for Marvel's end because this gives them options for other things. Because, when we get to the mutants, we'll have all that stuff as well. We still have all, like I said, the mythology they can go into with a lot of other characters that can expand the story to come back into another Avengers movie or another connected universe. Again, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is getting huge, but it's so good to see simple, what's the word I'm looking for? Simple um, placement or bugs or little things that this might not even been done by the director. This might have been something that was done by Kevin Feige saying, hey, can we throw this in there and make it a distraction, but make it known that it was always there this whole time? And that's what I feel makes Marvel so good, is they always implant seeds for future stories or storylines, whether it be very, very soon or way years down the road. And it's very intelligent design, so you can actually go back and go, I noticed that, but I didn't really pay attention to that, and now they're bringing it back, and you're like, oh, I remember that, and it brings an idea of I was a part of something bigger than it actually is, just because of one small connection. And this just confirmed exactly what I was stating prior in my last thing about how they're connecting things so much. Alexander the Great was part of the Greek mythology, or Alexander of Macedon, and this confirmed it right there that this is another god or king among men that was a part of another culture when it comes to their gods or their kings or anything of that nature. So my point to the whole thing is I love that this show is starting to connect all those that will 100% now connect us to what I was stating earlier, back to Thor and all those, and have a bigger connection in the MCU. So be ready. we're going to be seeing more of these type of characters when it comes to Marvel Cinematic Universe or in the MCU. And we're going to see extensive storylines that are going to connect in different ways that may not have to do with the Tony Starks or the super soldiers or mutants. And it's a good thing because this will bring other audiences into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. DC, you can learn by Disney and Marvel. I love it when a keyword comes into play that I have no information about, but then once I know what the information is about, it leads me down a path of familiarity. Here's what I'm meaning. Ushabti is said here. He said, where is the Ushabti? And I was like, what the heck is a Ushabti? So then I looked it up, and here's what it says. It's a small figure deposited in an ancient Egyptian tomb, with the mummy generally bearing inscriptions from the Book of the Dead and representing servants expected to do certain agricultural labors required of the deceased in the land of the dead. Then, of course, that made me think, oh, crap, they're talking about the land of the dead? That will bring in Duat. Now, in the Thor comics, Duat does go to, in the Thor comics, Thor goes to Duat to look for the Book of Thoth. So Duat is something that in one of the comic books he has to go back into, which of course when you look at it, definitely back in the situation of Egypt again. And again, another connection between Thor and that storyline. So this really, again, works out really well, especially with us having the new Thor movie coming out and then just recognize it as a linkage. I love what they're doing here, and more is starting to come into fruition when it comes to what Marvel is doing here as far as bringing mythology into their lore, their Marvel Comics lore, which they've already done in the comics anyway. So now here's something familiar. In the comic books, actually issue number 11, there's a whole story where Mark Spector's father actually puts him into a mental institution because he witnesses a murder and then, and basically ends up getting his multiple personalities. So, in the comic book, basically, Dr. Emmett is trying to, and while he's in the mental institution, trying to get him to separate himself with Khonshu, the person that he has become the avatar for. And in this situation, it puts him into I think it's called I had to look here, putting him a psychiatric hospital. I couldn't remember exactly the hospital. But puts him into the hospital, and in return, this puts on a situation where he's separated from Khonshu, and that's when Emmett is able to take it for himself. But then Mark Spector isn't able to leave the hospital until his father's death. And it actually happens because he goes to his father's funeral, and Khonshu finally has a chance to get back to his body, and we have Moon Knight again. So this looks like they're doing something quite similar to that, where maybe he's not, I don't understand the shooting part. He got shot, but now he's in a mental institution, which means that maybe Khonshu, because in the comic books, Khonshu can actually bring Mark Spector back to life. That might be the situation here, and so now Emmett's trying to get the body or try to get Khonshu away from Mark. But again, he actually already didn't had Khonshu, so I don't know where they're going with this. To be honest with you, it's a little bit confusing, but it does look like they're trying to connect that and trying to change his multiple personalities, which that might be the situation or not. Yeah, I don't know how to explain it. It's very confusing. Huh. We have a giant hippo that talks like a female. So let me explain. Remember, I in one of my episodes I talked about the lion god and the female, and there are many other gods that are prominently set up by animals. There's the lion. Um, there's even the panther, but you know that. An alligator. There's Osiris I was talking about earlier. Um, there's no hippo. There's no hippo. Um, so I had to do some research, and I found one hippo in Egyptian mythology. Tawrets, Tawerets. Um, they say this is a god of fertility, birth, and like childhood here. It says is the goddess of childbirth and fertility, acting as a protector of mothers and children. Now, I did state before that Mark's father put him in the mental institution as a kid. This could be that connection. Honestly, the episode ended this way. So that means I end here as well. And state that this is the strangest ending for any Moon Knight. What do I think? I enjoy the thought of them being in the mental institution for this episode. The ending with a giant hippo has taken me for a turn I've never thought I would when it comes to a Marvel series, a Marvel movie, a Marvel comic. It's a giant hippo with a female voice. Not saying hippos can't have female voices, but this is quite strange. This is not how I thought I'd be ending the episode for my review today, but I am. What's my final thoughts? Is there's a lot I've already kind of put into the story, or the full breakdown that I told you, mythology and Greek and all elder god types. But this is going to be my thumbnail. Sorry, I know it's a spoiler, but this is going to be my thumbnail because it's going to make people click on this video. It would make me click on this video. It's a giant hippo. This is the strangest way to end an episode, much like The Sopranos, when they just went